Our next guest is no great fan of Ben Bernanke. Former Congressman Ron Paul is known for sparring with the chairman publicly, and he's on record saying that the Fed's easing policy is extremely dangerous for the economy. Today, the good doctor joins us on the Futures Line to give us his take on the Fed, gold, and the U.S. economy. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for calling in again.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
All right, look, let's dig into it right here. The market's big question is what Bernanke is going to do now. I guess my question for you is what should he do right now?
Resign.
Well,
no, as far as managing money, I don't have a preference because there's no way you can manage money because all that is price fixing of the interest rates, which is the great distorter. It distorts everything and causes people to make a lot of mistakes, a lot of malinvestment, excessive debt, excessive spending by governments. So it's the principle. No, I've sparred with Bernanke as well as Greenspan, but it's the system that I spar with because I don't think they're smart enough to know what the interest rate should be. I think that's why you have bubbles, and I think that's why you have bubbles bursting, and that's why you have recessions. But I think they're under the gun right now because I don't think they're going to quit QE. I think they're going to continue. And we're at the so-called height of our recovery, 5 years now since the recession hit. So what happens now when the next recession starts under these conditions where you still have probably 20-some million people that are underemployed and 47 million people on food stamps, and you have a downturn, all they can do is spend more money and print more money, and there's a limit to this. And I think we're at that point. So I don't see them cutting back on the easing, and they're going to have a very tough time, and eventually the market will rule, and it won't be a happy scene.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them to back off if and when they do, whether it's now or later. There's no question about that. But I want to shift gears and talk about gold a little bit because you liked gold in the past, and I guess I'm wondering if you still like it, if you like it at this price, and if you'd go long here.
Well, I always go long on gold, and actually a lot of people who believe in gold are buying. There is actually a shortage of coinage. You know, the actual coins, there's a high demand, and so the people who believe in gold, actually buy a lot under these conditions. But the people who really believe in gold probably are systematic like I have been over the many, many years, and I see gold as a place where I save my money. To me, it's just another currency. And so, for many years, I have done that. So I don't look at, the ups and downs and day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
But, no, I think that when the price goes down, a true believer in gold and the people who are skeptical about the printing press and creating $85 billion new money, they're very hesitant to put their money into and their trust in a system like that.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, though, as I'm looking sort of at our economy and also the global economy, we're watching the situation in Japan very closely as well. Why isn't gold responding more?
Well, if you look at the last 13 years, it was up 12 out of 13, and this year isn't even over yet. So I would say that it's responded pretty well. But you might say, well, yeah, but what about in the last year? Why hasn't it? Well, markets do these kind of things. They go up sharply, and sometimes they take a rest. But the long term is something that you can sort of get a handle on. The short term, I was never very good on short term, whether it's the stock market or whatever, or what government will do. I mean, they're just all over the place. But no, I think if you look at the record, of the value of the dollar since the Fed's been in existence, we have about a 2-cent dollar, and gold used to be $20 an ounce. So I would say the record is rather clear on the side of commodity money, and history's on our side. Like 6,000 years of history shows that it maintains value, and paper always self-destructs.
Dr. Paul, am I right in my assumption? It sounds like you own gold. Do you own it? And also, if you could sort of give us a sense of where you think it will be by the end of the year. It sounds like you think it's going higher.
Well, I wouldn't predict about what's going to happen, and I think long-term gold always goes up, as it has been. I own gold I actually started at a young age because I was a coin collector and found out that savings in gold coins is a good way to save. So, yes, I continue to do that. But, there are some who predict the gold price is going to have another record increase, for the 13th year in a row. But I wouldn't dare predict that. But I would say that long term, as long as we have excessive spending and excessive computerized money, you're going to see gold go up. And eventually, if we're not careful, it go to infinity because the dollar could collapse totally.
Gold could go to infinity. Anthony Crisanti at the NYMEX, your response to that and a question for Dr. Paul.
Well, infinity is a big number. Dr. Paul.
I said it could do that.
Absolutely. Dr. Paul, it seems like lately gold is disconnected from the dollar. We don't have the fear trade anymore, and that's why I think a lot of the hedge funds liquidated their positions. So really it rests, I think, on inflation. And the CPI number this morning was pretty calm, pretty tame. When do you see inflation picking its head up, or do you? And do you think we could actually be hitting a deflationary period where gold wouldn't do well in that period?
Well, since I have a slightly different definition of inflation than the conventional wisdom, everybody said, well, the CPI measures inflation. I think that's the least reliable way of measuring inflation. I think you look at the money supply, but oil's doing pretty good right now. It's almost $100 a barrel again. Housing prices are going up.
That could have something to do with what's going on geopolitically, also. Yeah, absolutely.
But also the bonds. The bonds are a huge price. They're very, very expensive. And what about medical costs? Just think of what Obama's done to medical care costs right now.
I can't argue with that.
People are scrambling. So there's a lot of inflation out there. But to me, the most serious problem with the distortion of interest rates and inflating the currency is the malinvestment, doing the wrong thing, housing bubbles, NASDAQ bubbles, stock market bubbles, bond bubbles. That's where the real problem is, and the Fed always loses control of that. What was Bernanke telling us in 2007? Was he warning us of any danger? What was he telling us in 1999? Did any of those guys ever say, hey, watch out, there's a crisis coming? So they don't see the malinvestment. They look at the CPI, which is concocted by the government to reassure everybody. Some people who know the CPI doesn't mean anything, nevertheless knows the market cares about the CPI. So if the CPI comes out at 0.1%, okay, it's okay, even though they know darn well that somebody on retirement money right now, their cost of living is going up, and they're suffering from inflation. So I would say that it is this distortion in understanding monetary policy from a Keynesian viewpoint versus an Austrian free market viewpoint is the real problem we face.
And Dr. Paul, we've talked about inflation a lot on this program. I don't think any of us would dispute the points that you've made there. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on Futures Now. We are going to have to leave it there.